My name is Evelyn, and I'm 31 years old. 5 years ago, my life was divided sharply into a before and an after by a lie that wasn't even mine. It didn't unfold during a shouting match or some explosive family confrontation. There was no warning, no dramatic scene, no opportunity to defend myself. It happened quietly, in the most devastating way imaginable, through silence. I was sitting in a hospital library late one night, still in my scrubs after a grueling shift, reviewing notes for an upcoming exam when my phone buzzed. The message was from my mother. Just one sentence. We're done supporting lies. Don't contact us again until you're ready to tell the truth. I stare at the screen, confusion flooding me, my heart pounding against my ribs. What lie? What truth? I call her immediately. No answer. I tried my father. Straight to voicemail. I sent text after text asking what was wrong. None of them went through. By morning, I had been blocked everywhere. That was the moment I understood something was terribly wrong, though I still didn't know what had been taken from me. I hadn't dropped out of medical school. I was fully enrolled, attending rotations, pushing myself through exhaustion, pressure, and self-doubt like every other medical student. I was tired, yes, but I was proud. Becoming a doctor was the hardest thing I had ever attempted, and I was doing it. What I didn't realize was that my sister had already rewritten my story. She told our parents I had quit medical school, that I was ashamed and didn't want them to know. She delivered the lie with practiced concern, her voice laced with just enough sadness to make it convincing. And they believed her completely. Within days, the fallout began. My parents stopped paying rent on my tiny apartment without any warning. My health insurance was canceled. The tuition support they had promised simply disappeared. When I asked extended family why my calls were being ignored, a cousin finally whispered the truth. Your sister said you quit med school. I felt physically ill. I tried to explain. I sent emails with proof, official enrollment letters, rotation schedules, exam scores. But my sister stayed one step ahead, telling them I was lying, forging documents, unraveling under pressure. She cried to them about how worried she was for me. And every single time, they chose her version. What hurt most wasn't the financial loss or the sudden instability. It was realizing my parents never once asked me directly. They never offered me the benefit of the doubt. They didn't want to hear my side. The lie fit too neatly into their fears about me, that I was too sensitive, that my dreams were too big, that I wouldn't endure. Once they accepted that narrative, the truth became inconvenient. Eventually, I stopped trying to prove myself. Begging your own parents to believe you stripped something essential from your spirit. The following years were the hardest of my life. I picked up extra shifts wherever possible. I slept on friends' couches and at times in empty hospital rooms. When I couldn't afford rent, I survived on the cheapest food and skipped meals altogether. I cried in stairwells between rounds, then washed my face before stepping back in to see patients. I kept going, because quitting would have made my sister's lie real. I refused to let my future be dictated by something so cruel and false. I passed my exams. I matched into residency. I grew stronger in ways I never wanted to. On the day I graduated from residency, I stood in my cap and gown and scanned the audience anyway, even though I knew better. Each name before mine was followed by cheers. Families rising to their feet, parents crying with pride. When my name was called, strangers offered polite applause. My parents weren't there. They didn't attend. They didn't call. They didn't text. I told myself I was used to it, but the ache didn't fade. It only settled deeper. 2 years later, I got married. It was a small, simple wedding that I paid for myself. I watched other brides embrace their mothers. I watched fathers walk their daughters down the aisle. I felt the absence like a physical weight pressing against my chest. When guests asked where my family was, I smiled and said they couldn't make it. I didn't explain that my parents believed I was a failure. I didn't say that my sister's lie had erased me from their lives. I didn't admit that I had learned to celebrate milestones quietly, without witnesses. 5 years passed that way. 5 years of silence. 5 years of becoming a doctor anyway. I stopped waiting for apologies that never came. I focused on my patients, on doing good, on building a life that didn't depend on people who had already turned away from me. I thought I had made peace with it. I believed the past was sealed off and untouchable. Then last month, during a night shift, my phone rang from an unknown number. The voice on the other end trembled with urgency. My sister had been rushed to the ER. Severe, life-threatening complications. My chest tightened, not with satisfaction or revenge, but with something far more complicated. Blood doesn't disappear just because trust does. I stood there for a moment, staring at the wall, knowing I was about to walk straight back into the family that had cut me off. I had no idea fate was about to expose a lie that destroyed me, or that the truth I had quietly lived for 5 years was about to enter the room with me. I didn't know it was my sister when I accepted the case. The ER was loud and chaotic, alarms ringing, urgency blurring time. The charge nurse handed me the chart, recited the details, and then said the patient's name, my sister's name. For half a second, everything inside me froze. 5 years of silence, anger, and distance collided in that instant. Then training took over. I didn't hesitate. I didn't ask for reassignment. I scrubbed in, steadied my breathing, and walked toward the room. No matter what she had done, a patient needed help. When I pulled back the curtain, I saw her on the gurney, pale, trembling, fear etched across her face. Machines beeped in uneven rhythms, tracking a body in distress. Off to the side stood my parents. I barely recognized them. They looked older, worn down by time and a regret they didn't yet understand. My mother clutched my father's arm so tightly her knuckles had turned white. When she truly saw me, her eyes widened in disbelief, her grip tightening so hard it would later leave bruises. No one spoke at first. My sister stared at me like I was a ghost. My parents' faces drained of color as recognition settled in. This wasn't coincidence. It wasn't a cruel twist of fate. I stood there with my name stitched onto my coat, authority in my posture, years of work evident in every movement. The daughter they believed had failed was now the doctor responsible for saving their other child. The lie that had cut me off for 5 years had nowhere left to hide. I didn't introduce myself. I didn't accuse anyone. I focused on the monitors, the symptoms, the treatment plan. I explained what was happening in clear, steady terms, the risks, the procedures, the next steps. My voice remained calm. My hands didn't tremble. Inside, everything screamed, but discipline held me steady. My sister began to cry, not only from pain, but from the crushing weight of truth. She couldn't charm her way out of this. She couldn't redirect the narrative. Reality was louder. My father finally whispered my name, Evelyn. I met his eyes and nodded once. Questions tumbled out. Was it true? Was I really a doctor? Had I never dropped out? I answered evenly. Yes. Yes. No, I never quit. I told them I had tried to reach them. I told them they missed my residency graduation and my wedding. I told them I stood alone on days meant to be shared with family. I didn't need to raise my voice. Each word carried its own weight. My mother sank into a chair, sobbing, her hands shaking. My father stared at the floor, as though it might swallow him. My sister whispered apologies that sounded hollow, fueled more by fear than genuine remorse. I saved her life that night, not because the past no longer mattered, and not because forgiveness had suddenly appeared. I saved her because I am a doctor, and my integrity did not vanish when they turned their backs on me. After the crisis passed and the room grew quiet, my parents asked if we could talk. I told them the truth no longer required permission. I told them forgiveness wasn't something they could demand after 5 years of absence. They apologized repeatedly. But apologies don't erase silence, miss milestones, or shatter trust. When I walked out of the hospital at sunrise, exhaustion heavy in my bones, I felt something unexpected, clarity. I realized I didn't need their acknowledgement to feel complete. The lie that severed me for 5 years shaped me. It hardened me, but it did not destroy me. I built a life anyway. I became someone anyway. And sometimes the strongest form of justice is revenge or anger. It's surviving, succeeding, and allowing the truth to speak for itself.